South Africa shuts down diplomatic missions in Abuja and Lagos. Nigeria recalls ambassador. Air Peace Airlines offers to evacuate for free Nigerians who want to return home from South Africa. In international news, Syrian authorities find 5,000 bodies in Raqqa mass graves. And in sports, the Tigers face Ivory Coast in ongoing FIBA World Cup.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The South Africa High Commission to Nigeria has shut down its offices and consulates over reprisal attacks by youths for xenophobic attacks on Nigerians in South Africa. Acting High Commissioner Bobby Monroe confirmed the reports that he had directed the mission to suspend all consular activities until the situation improves in both countries. Monroe says he has information South Africans are being pulled out of vehicles and attacked in Nigeria. On its part, Nigeria has recalled its ambassador to South Africa as diplomatic tussle continues over the ugly incident. MTN, ShopRite and other South African businesses in Nigeria reopened today after shutting their doors on Wednesday in fear of what angry mobs could do. Minister of Foreign Affairs Geoffrey Onyeama says domestic airline Air Peace has offered to ferry back for free Nigerians who want to leave South Africa. The airline says this is to complement federal government's efforts to stem the killings of Nigerians residing in South Africa. The airline's chief operating officer, Oluwatoyin Olajide, said in a letter to the minister, this gesture by Air Peace is born out of patriotism. She said the federal government should ask the Nigerian embassy and the South African government to rescue stranded Nigerians by transporting them to the airport so the airline can evacuate them. Onyeama said this act is a huge relief to the federal government and Nigerians who might be stranded in South Africa. Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde has signed into law the 182 billion naira reviewed 2019 budget passed by the State House of Assembly. The bill was re-evaluated from 285 billion naira proposed by former Governor Abiola Ajimobi's government. Governor Makinde described the former bill as unrealistic for Oyo State. Makinde says the state present economic status has made it compulsory to review downward the over-bloated budget presented by the immediate past administration. Let's now talk politics. Ahead of the November governorship election in Kogi State, young brother of the immediate past governor, Engineer Musa Wada, has emerged the winner of the People's Democratic Party governorship primary by winning 748 votes. Abubakar Idris followed with 710 votes. Former Governor Captain Idris Wada was third, while Senator Dino Melaye came fourth. Votes in 8 of the 10 ballot boxes have already been sorted and counted before the process was disrupted by gunmen. Meanwhile, David Leon of the All Progressives Congress APC has emerged winner in the Bayelsa State governorship primary. He scored more than 42,000 votes to defeat his closest rival, Deseye Inserim, who got just 1,000 votes. Others are Heineken Lobo Beauty with 571 votes, Priye Aganaba 354 votes, Amgabre 633 votes, and Maureen Etebu 564 votes. Chief Coalition Officer Dangana Emmanuel says the mode was direct primary, as agreed by Bayelsa stakeholders and confirmed by the party's National Working Committee. Controller General of the Nigerian Immigration Service, Muhammad Babandede, says the new enhanced e-passport is acceptable and valid for all countries. Babandede's reassurance is to counter recent problems encountered with the e-passport by travelers to the United Arab Emirates. The Controller General encouraged Nigerians to get their national identity number and ensure that the information tallies with the one on their passport. Babandede says the uniformity of the NIN information and that of the 10-year validity passports is to ensure one identity, which is a major feature of the new enhanced e-passport. The Lagos State government has announced plans to return to the monthly sanitation exercises that were cancelled 3 years ago by former Governor Akinwumi Ambode. The government says this will help achieve a cleaner Lagos. The state government says it is presently reviewing the sanitation law, which would enable it to reintroduce the exercise. Lagos Commissioner for the Environment and Water Resources, Tunji Bello, presented this at a meeting with the Association of Commodity Market Women and Men, led by the Yaloja General of Nigeria, Folashade Tinubu. Bello lamented that invalidation of the monthly exercise by the court was a setback which would be reversed very soon. Tinubu says the leadership of markets would intensify its sanitation strategies to achieve a cleaner Lagos. Coming up, African stories. South Sudan urged to trace more than 4,000 persons separated by conflicts. And later, international news. 5,000 bodies found in Raqqa mass graves.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and African Stories. The violent xenophobic attacks on foreign nationals in South Africa has continued to generate reactions in many African countries. The South African government says it has temporarily shut down its embassy in Nigeria, while some South African businesses have locked up their operations. As Angela Coppola reports, locals and foreigners in South Africa are distressed about these attacks.
Foreigners are very concerned about becoming victims of xenophobic attacks. They're concerned for their lives and for their livelihoods.
Honestly, I have to tell you, I'm feeling very, very bad. Very, very bad, because for the past 4 days, I'm no longer running my business. I'm a cell phone technician. This is the month end. I have to pay my house rent. I have to pay my shop rent. Now the business is down. How am I going to pay my shop rent? Had it been we've got a house, we are paying bond.
Many South Africans are against the violence and xenophobia. They want to live in harmony.
If you're coming to chase these people away, you're saying money must go. We do need everyone, even the white people, we need them. Our economy will drop if we don't have you guys, or we don't have, we need to help each other.
The impact of the xenophobic attacks on the economy and the country will be far-reaching.
I got a note from one of our members, Coca-Cola, who are also as concerned, and they want to stop the distribution. We've got people like Total who've decided that all their trucks should stop. So this is going to affect and impact the economy in a way that is much more wider than what you see in Jeppes-Town or Johannesburg or Tshwane and other places.
There's been a call in certain circles that foreign nationals should go back to their country of origin. Some are willing to go, but they want 3 months to get their affairs in order. Others are happy to stay.
I've applied for work permits. They're always declined and they don't want to give me the permit. They don't want to give you paper. We're applying, but they don't want to give. I'm by my shop doing my genuine job, but let them give me the permits. I'll be paying all the taxes they're required.
The recent spate of xenophobia here in Johannesburg has led to many businesses losing all their assets, and it's going to take them years to recuperate and recover from any of this.
The Ugandan government says it is reviewing its open-door refugee policy because of security and criminality concerns. Uganda has been hailed around the world in the past few years for its all-embracing approach to hosting refugees and has given shelter to more than 1 million persons from across the region. Refugees Minister Hilary Onek says Uganda was looking at its policy because some neighboring countries had abused it by deploying spies disguised as asylum seekers to destabilize the country. Uganda has previously accused Rwanda of infiltrating its intelligence services. The minister said some high-profile refugees had been adopted and even killed by those who had come into the country as refugees. Onek also says the government is concerned about some criminals fleeing to Uganda as refugees to evade justice in their own countries. He said background checks will now be carried out and the merits of each application vetted vigorously. Uganda is currently home to more than 1 million refugees, mostly from South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. More than 4,000 persons were displaced during South Sudan's 6-year conflict. Many children were also orphaned, while some, still more, were separated from their parents. The government has been urged to step up efforts to trace the missing persons and help to reunite them with their families. Thousands of people have been displaced by the 6-year conflict in the country. Patrick Koyet reports.
Alice Nyagula is a 30-year-old mother of 4. She last saw her brother and his wife in 2013. They were separated when war broke out in South Sudan's capital, Juba. He left behind 3 of his children, who are now looked after by Alice.
If someone is dead, the news about his death can reach his or her relatives. Even if you have not seen the body, you will believe that the person is dead. But there's no news about my brother, so I will continue to look for him.
The International Committee of the Red Cross says cases of missing persons increased due to the 6 years of civil war in South Sudan. The ICRC says other forms of violence, such as cattle rustling, are also responsible for the separation of people from their families.
As part of our work on the missing in South Sudan, the ICRC advocates for legal frameworks and mechanisms for missing persons and for support to families of the missing.
Children with missing parents struggle for services such as education and health. Many parts of South Sudan do not have telecommunications or internet network. Contacts are sometimes impossible between family members living in different parts of the country. South Sudan's government says it is working to implement a peace deal which it says will make it easier to trace missing persons.
I believe that whatever we do in contributing to bringing lasting peace to this great country, and together we shall achieve it.
For Alice Nyagula, whether there is peace or not, she says she will continue to look for her brother.
Somalia is experiencing the poorest cereal harvest this year since the 2011 famine. This was caused by late and erratic rains during this year's cropping season and is threatening an already fragile food security situation in the country. UN Food and Agriculture Organization says cereal production was up to 70% below average. Climatic shocks and widespread poverty and vulnerability are key drivers that have trapped millions of Somalis in severe hunger. UN figures show at least 2.5 million persons remain internally displaced across the country where widespread malnutrition persists. UN says humanitarian operation for Somalia remains underfunded. It has received just under $500,000, which is less than half of what it needs. When we return, international news. 5,000 bodies found in Raqqa mass graves. And later, sport. D Tigers defeat South Korea to face Ivory Coast on Friday.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and Foreign Stories. Data compiled by the International Organization for Migration say this year has been one of the deadliest years for migrants trekking to the U.S. Some migrants' fatalities are said to have happened when migrants' boats capsize or when migrants crossing rivers are swept away by currents. Some migrants are said to even get lost or abandoned in the desert without water. Some are hit by diseases and health emergencies. Still, others are involved in car crash while trains crushed some migrants who hung on to free rides. By the end of last month, more than 500 migrants in the Americas has died or were missing and presumed dead. This makes 2019 the deadliest year for migrants in the past 5 years. The International Organization for Migration data show that half of the deaths documented in the Americas this year happened near the U.S.-Mexico border, where bodies or skeletons are regularly found in the desert. U.S. patrol agents often search the river for missing children or entire families swept under the currents in their efforts to swim across and reach American soil. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson suffered a series of damaging defeats on Wednesday over the government policies on leaving the European Union. A coalition of opposition and conservative lawmakers are dead set against Britain crashing out of the European Union with no deal on October the 31st. The Prime Minister insists such a law would undermine negotiations with the bloc. Richard Bestick reports.
Colours now firmly nailed to Britain's Brexit mast. Divisions as raucous on the streets as they are inside Parliament. With his control over Brexit stripped away, Prime Minister Boris Johnson accused the opposition of wrecking his EU Brexit negotiations and challenged them to a general election. The government lost control of Parliament by 27 votes, allowing MPs to begin the process of outlawing a no-deal Brexit, seriously tying Johnson's hands. The Rebel Alliance did it with the backing of 21 MPs from Johnson's own party. That triggered a government purge of 21 of Parliament's most senior Conservatives, including 2 former Chancellors of the Exchequer and even the grandson of Britain's famous wartime leader Winston Churchill. Battered and bruised, Boris Johnson is still looking for a general election to revive his fortunes, while members of Parliament are well on their way to imposing a ban on a no-deal Brexit. If they're quick, there could still be a general election. But who'll win and what difference it'll make to the Brexit process? A mystery. Brexit in Britain doesn't give up its secrets lightly.
Since the beginning of last year, more than 5,000 bodies have been uncovered in and around Raqqa in Syria, all believed to be dumped in mass graves by Islamic State militants. Most of the remains have not been identified because there are no resources for DNA or forensic testing. Workers for Raqqa's Civil Defense Force work 8-hour daily shifts, digging up bodies, often finding more than a dozen each day. Civil Defense Force Chief Yazar Kami says so far remains of at least 700 persons have been returned to families, but without financial support for more advanced testing. Kami says the only way to identify bodies is by items of clothing or hair. Inside the city, a residential compound appears to have once been a school, but now the yard is dug up as the search for bodies continues. In and around Raqqa, there are 16 known mass graves being evacuated. They have found bodies of civilians, prisoners, soldiers, children, and fighters on both sides. Hundreds of families have registered on a database in hopes the remains of their loved ones will be identified one day. Up next, sports. G Tigers to face Ivory Coast in ongoing FIBA World Cup. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Up next, sports. G Tigers to face Ivory Coast in ongoing FIBA World Cup. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow this story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sports, the Nigerian men's basketball team D Tigers have defeated Korea in the final Group B game of the ongoing FIBA World Cup. This is the first win for D Tigers, who have suffered losses in their first two games against Russia and Argentina. The Tigers have now qualified for Group M along with Ivory Coast, South Korea and Venezuela. They will face Ivory Coast on Friday. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has begun fresh investigations into the Nigeria Football Federation. The investigation is looking into allegations of stolen funds meant for the development of football in the country. The investigation also focuses on money generated from the NFF's official sponsor, domestic league television sponsorship, and payments from a former kit supplier for all the national teams, and also alleged misappropriation of almost $3 million from FIFA Financial Assistance Program. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.